The institution at the summit of the British state is a family affair, known even to some of its members as the firm. And at its heart, a partnership.
From our family, it's fundamental, because without him, it would be completely different.
He saw the Queen naturally as the chairman of the firm, and he was a kind of chief executive.
It's the untold story of the reign, just how much he contributed behind the scenes.
The royal family and Princess Elizabeth's fiancé have permitted these special film studies to be made.
Philip had a glittering career in the Royal Navy, but that came to a premature end with the death of his father-in-law. So what next for a young man of prodigious energy? At first, frustration.
Nobody had really thought about, and by the way, what is he going to do? And it took a little while to find people who understood that he had extraordinary experience and skills of his own that could be made very good use of. But he also found ways in which he could make an impact.
While the Queen wore the crown, the Duke of Edinburgh wore the trousers. He was allowed and enabled to run the family side of the business. It was he really who settled on where the children went to school, on what the houses should look like, on how Windsor Castle should be developed. The Queen left all that to him and was glad to do so.
But Philip the modernizer crashed against custom and convention.
I think in those days the footmen still wore powdered wigs. It was a different world. It was a Victorian court. He seemed to be almost dangerously progressive.
Yet progress prevailed. A new monarch and a new style of monarchy for a new age of mass media. It was Philip who ensured the coronation was televised.
What he was up to was simply trying to bring a breath of fresh air and new ideas to a fusty old institution.
What's this for?
Philip understood the need for the royals to appear real and relevant in less deferential times.
Oh, why have they done that?
Though his gamble to allow cameras to document a year in the family's life was an experiment never repeated.
He came to realise that it was possibly a mistake, because once you start selling yourself as people, as individuals, you begin to make yourself into a soap opera.
He realises he's guaranteed failure.
And I think one of his regrets of the later part of his life was that the royal family had become something of a soap opera.
It was an era where change was the only constant. A growing family.
The bridesmaids trying to cope with that train.
His eldest son and heir's wedding. Philip piloted the firm through every challenge.
He was always questioning, always, once you got him on side, hugely supportive. And the important thing with the Duke of Edinburgh was to be prepared to argue your case, because if you didn't know your facts, if you didn't know what your case was, you were shredded.
No greater crisis was there than the death of Diana. A nation's anguish turned to anger, directed at a royal family which seemed out of touch with the public mood.
Because he wasn't sentimental, that doesn't mean that he wasn't sensitive.
And the criticism stung. But the Queen and Philip in Balmoral saw it as their duty to protect Diana's children.
We got a real sense that this was a grieving, mourning family up there, and they were looking after those boys and tending to them incredibly closely. I mean, they were the grandparents. The people that were organising the funeral wanted to know if the boys had made their mind up about whether they would proceed behind the coffin. Prince Philip's voice came across very clearly, and to me, in a most anguished way. You know, these boys' mother had died, and this was not the time to question them about that.
In the end, it is the heartbreaking image that has lingered of the two boys following their mother's funeral cortege, Philip walking every step alongside them.
Memory is a strange thing, isn't it? But I seem to remember saying that, in fact, it was a question of, if you'll do it, I'll do it. And that was him as a grandfather saying to his, if that's what you want to do, and if you want me to be there, I will be there.
A reassuring pat on the back for Prince William from his grandfather.
In recent years, his hand hasn't been so firmly on the tiller. The former naval commander not quite so clearly at the helm. 4 hours in the rain by the river at the Diamond Jubilee celebrations took their toll.
Ladies and gentlemen, if we shout loud enough, he might just hear us in hospital
and he was absent again, this time deliberately so, from family talks to decide Harry and Meghan's future.
Would things have been done differently and better recently if the Duke of Edinburgh was still at the centre of events?
I know that the Duke of Edinburgh's rule was, don't talk about yourself. Don't give personal interviews. I know that, and I know he told his children that because he told me. I imagine that's the advice he would have given his grandchildren as well. So when I think about recent events, I think he would have sighed rather. He wanted to separate the role of the monarchy from the people involved. It is an institution. And he said to me, well, I've done my best to help keep it going while I've been here.
If history comes to judge this second Elizabethan age a success, then Philip gets credit as its joint author. The family, the firm, has endured.